Hey kids, you're listening to The Why and the Buy with Christie Walters and Jeff Bajorek. I'm Terry Bean, their special guest today.
Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it The Why and the Buy.
All right. And we're back on the Why and the Buy podcast. I am Jeff Bajorek here, as always, with my partner, Christie Walters. Christie, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous, Jeff. Sunny day in Atlanta.
Oh, when is it not a sunny day in Atlanta? I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it. I'd rather hear about what our friend Terry Bean has to say. Terry Bean, hashtag not that Terry Bean, is here to talk with us today about Google results, Google alerts, and owning the first page of your brand. And if you think that is a joke, then you'd be right. But go ahead and Google his name and you'll see why we're figuring that out. Terry?
Part of that's not a joke at all, right? And I mean that in a couple of ways of it not being a joke. But to some extent, it's like funny when you're removed from it, but in it, less funny indeed. Man, you said sunny. I'm making sun tea on the deck right now.
Oh, good for you. Sun tea.
We don't have that in Michigan until this time of year. It doesn't really exist otherwise. So it's like it's 1977.
I think that's the last time I had sun tea, in fact.
Probably so. Probably, yeah. It's a new thing. It's like the Power Rangers. It's coming back. Making its way through. That's cool.
I met Terry Bean a couple of years ago on what started as one of the worst days I've ever had, but finished as one of the best days I've ever had. And Terry Bean was a part of that. I met Terry at kind of a networking kind of workshop / seminar / huge production called Fuel Detroit. And I heard that Terry was a connector. And after knowing him for the 3 years that I have now, there is not a truer word to describe the man. And we want to talk today about connection. We want to talk today about virtual reality. We want to talk today maybe a little bit about TEDx, because TEDx Detroit is the longest continuously running TEDx production in the world. Say that again. Think about that to yourself. And Terry Bean is one of the people who produces that show. And so Terry's got just a wealth of experience and knowledge and connections behind him, and there was no way that he wasn't going to be a good fit for this podcast. And welcome again, Terry.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to listen to you guys and talk to you guys and share with you and your people. It's always fun, man. It's nice to be on this side of a podcast, right? Host your own show, and
that's right.
You know, you're so busy doing that you forget that you should go on other people's show every now and again. And so, thanks to Zoom for making it easy. I'll give you the royalty check, because Zoom.
That's right. Zoom, not a sponsor, but a crucial tool. And
yes, very.
We'll touch on this later, but Terry's podcast is called Business Growth Time with Janet E. Johnson, and you should check that out for sure. But Terry, what is it that you're up to these days? Give us a peek behind the curtain a little bit as to where you've come from and where you're going here.
So I've spent the last 10 years doing business development, either as a consultant or as a coach or a presenter and a speaker, or a guy that was kind of doing community organizing and community development through Motor City Connect, which is a really large business networking group here in the Detroit area. But all of those times, people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, how much time do you have? And, lesson number one I would share with every single client is you got to focus. You got to narrow your niche. You got to get down to one thing and be excellent at it. And then I would say, unless you're me, and then you run around and do 47 different things. This year, 2017, opportunity came up in a space that really intrigued me, and it's virtual reality. So I've taken all of that energy, all of that time, all of that knowledge, wisdom, that ability to connect, and wrapped it into a real nice veil under the virtual reality flag, for lack of a better term. We're spending some time building out arcade solutions, right? Because the gateway drug into VR is gaming. So we're working, setting up virtual reality arcades and out-of-home entertainment spaces, whether it's a movie theater or a bowling alley or a family entertainment center. And we're giving them kind of a drop-in place, plug-and-play, business in a box virtual reality arcade. And so I'm like an old school sales guy and an old school marketing guy, going out and targeting those locations, giving them the value proposition, opening the doors and watching them close and, getting them to sign on the line that is dotted.
Well, that brings up a pretty interesting question to me, Terry. And so how do you sell something that doesn't exist? Now, one of the things that we like, one of our previous guests actually mentioned something. Scott Ginsburg said, so what does this make possible? That was the kind of his line that has stuck with me. I find myself using it all the time now. But you literally sell something that doesn't exist. How do you approach that?
That's an interesting piece, right? So it's the right balance of trying to transfer that excitement like all sales is. And that's kind of the easy part when you're talking about fresh new technology that you can point to because people are starting to see it. But the rest of it becomes a little bit different, Cole, especially you're an existing business. You've been doing fine. You've got all this space that people are spending money in, and you want me to change my layout to put your stuff in. And because part of our model, the majority of our current base is franchise, I can't even provide you sales numbers. I can't tell you what we're making on a monthly basis. So it's a difficult sales process, and it's a matter of building that trust and patient and answering questions. And oh, good God, does it take so much longer when you're doing that outbound as opposed to when they're calling in, right? When they know that they want a solution and you have it, sales becomes a heck of a lot easier than when you're out there trying to create that need. Like, hey, thanks, Dr. Sales. Tell us something we didn't know.
You're right. So, Terry, who are your early adopters? I mean, I know you mentioned the obvious, right? So your arcade environments, but there are some other unique ones that you're working with right now too, right?
Yeah, so the real big ones, the latest sale is an organization out of Delaware. They're right on the beach, and they're like a batting cage facility, and they've got some go-karts, and it is a family entertainment center that is looking to draw different aspects of that family in. We were having some great conversations with they're regional movie theater chains. I wouldn't call them national, but they're in 9 states. And, we're looking at a very large cruise line that we're going to be able to put this on. So inside of the cruise, you can go and have this alternative experience. Simultaneously, we can kind of redirect the technology a little bit and utilize it as a marketing solution for them too. So we can create a virtual reality experience of what it's like to walk through the cruise ship, room by room, deck by deck, attraction by attraction, and showcase this. If you're a first-time cruiser, what does this really look like? And then you can do the same thing at each port of call. So it's kind of neat. I used to joke about when I first got in this business, I'm like, listen, yeah, the VR arcade space is nice, but that's finite. Let's talk about the training. Let's talk about the marketing. Let's talk about the in-goggle advertising and all the real opportunities that exist outside of just games that can really kind of shape this business for us. I felt like I had 14 different tigers by the tail, and, tigers by a tail kind of turn around and bite, It's like,
yeah, right.
I hold all of these.
That whole narrow your focus thing really comes into play there, right?
You got it. Yeah. Because at least if you're holding one, you can kind of dodge and weave as need be, as opposed to 14 of them all just turning around and kicking your butt simultaneously.
Well, and I love the element of VR and training too, that idea. And I noticed on your Facebook page, there's a couple even that are, kind of med school based, right? So it really allows you to kind of walk through the body or through the blood system. And I'm thinking, wow, for someone who's having a tough time conceptualizing and even, kind of visualizing depth inside the body, body, it really brings it to life. So that's a powerful experience.
And literally walking through the heart, right?
Yeah.
You can literally be inside and look at the ventricles and look at the aorta and look at the veins coming through. And all of a sudden you can just kind of shoot out whichever way you want to go. It's so immersive, and it's such a long-awaited solution. I mean, virtual reality has been around, and conceptually, the first product for virtual reality came out in the 1960s. So it's 50 years old, and this is the fourth incarnation of it. But this one finally took hold. Listen, it's so big that in 2014, Facebook gave Oculus $2 billion with a B dollars to invest. At that time, not only had Oculus had sales of exactly $0, they didn't actually release their finished product that Facebook invested in for 2 years. So it was 2 years ahead of the time, $2 billion. So there's some pretty heavy bets going on as to what this technology is going to do. So the timing's good, the space is right, and I'm selling fun, which is, I like fun, so that's kind of cool.
Well, and here's the thing. Most times, I think most people would prefer to sell fun. And it's not just the gaming fun. It's not just the training fun. I think that we're talking about delivering an experience to a customer, whether that's another business, if you're in a business-to-business application, or if it's directly to the customer, like what a lot of these family entertainment centers are going to be selling to their family customers. But beyond the gaming, beyond the training, think about what this brings up. Look at the next time you go to book a hotel room. On the website, there's going to be a little brief explanation of what's in the hotel room. Oh, there's going to be a bed. Okay, there's going to be a desk and a television and whatever. But think about some of your higher end hotels. Think about some of your higher end resorts. Think about some of the golf courses. Think about some of the tourist experiences. Think about what a company like Disney would be able to do to bring that experience home. When you're selling anything with a high dollar amount, the more of a preview experience that you can give to that customer, the better you can get them emotionally invested in the process and in the product or the service. And that is where the wheels start turning a little bit. And I got to admit, Terry, I'm like, oh, great. So Terry sells video games. How awesome. Like, that's great. And Terry, that couldn't have happened to a better guy. Awesome. But now you start talking about training, and you start talking about the guest experience on cruise ships and what we can do in ports. And what can you go on a cruise while you're afraid of boats? Can you go on a cruise now? Because you can go on a cruise from the comfort of your own couch. Maybe you can experience minications 2 hours at a time. What does that do to relaxation for people who work too hard like we all do? And, you just kind of sit down, put the goggles on, and literally go to the Corona commercial, right? Again, not a sponsor of this program. Let's just say that right there. But
But we're totally open,
Right.
just so everyone's aware. We're totally open to that. Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, even as you think about that experience at home, think about the application in psychiatry, right? When you're dealing with fears and phobias, and a lot of times that facing those issues and emotions are critical to getting you past that moment. In the past, you just had to go and be with sharks or spiders or whatever. Now you could actually have that virtual experience without any of the real risk associated with it.
When I first jumped into this and made the decision, I think I want to do this, I loaded up my playlist on YouTube, video after video after video after video. The single most compelling of the 50 I watched that week was one about how VR can treat warriors with PTSD.
Oh, yes.
All right. So the story goes very simply: war is 98% standing around and 2%, what the fuck just happened? Right? That's evident. I'm not a soldier, but this was the story. So it sounds right to me. I can get that. In that 2% of time, you see and experience and live through stuff that you don't have the ability to even begin to process. And as such, anytime those memories come back, your brain instantly trying to protect you shuts it down. So you can't relive. And if you can't relive and you can't go through, you can't get to the other side of it. What VR does is it allows you to go in those exact circumstances, to have them recreated for you when you're pulling up in the back of the truck and everybody jumps out and there's grenades and bombs and all of that flying and people dying, and you can go right through it and you can watch it. And your brain does not in any way, shape, or form know the difference between you actually being there or you sitting in the psychiatrist's chair at their desk watching this. Your brain doesn't know. So you can walk through, you can talk through, you can relive and re-experience, and you can kind of breathe through it. And that piece was like, holy cow, is this just amazing? So when you talk about dealing with fears and dealing with issues, that one amazed me. There's an experience called Richie's Plank. And Richie's Plank is a pretty simple game. You're in downtown, you're surrounded by skyscrapers, you go up into an elevator, you hit the top floor of the elevator, and the door opens and you are facing the cityscape. And you look down, and there is an 8-foot long board that's about 10 inches wide. And all you have to do is walk out the end of the board, and that's it. People who are afraid of heights will stand firmly planted talking about how they can't possibly do it. Listen, you're in my living room. You're on the floor. No, I can't do it. I've watched grown men sweat, shake, and visibly be disturbed about the idea of walking 8 feet across the floor in my living room because they have virtual reality goggles on and they're afraid of heights.
I did something like that. Yeah, not too long ago. We were at, I think it was the Children's Museum in Indianapolis, and they have a little circus thing, kind of exhibit, and you get virtual reality, and you walk across the tightrope, and it's wild. Listen, I know this is carpet. I watched 15 people do it right in front of me. Kids, 4 or 5-year-olds. You get all fired up, and you laugh at the people who really think they're falling, and it's a lot of fun. But you're right. Once you're in there and you've got those goggles on, you see a tightrope and a long way down, and your mind is playing tricks on you. And the thing is, too, your mind knows it's playing tricks on you, and you know your mind is playing tricks on you, and you can't reconcile the difference. It's wild. It is wild.
That's crazy. So now, Terry, is there a difference? So I've heard there's a difference, at least, between virtual reality and augmented reality. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big difference. So virtual reality is a fully immersive state. You're going to have goggles like these. If you're watching the video, they're kind of dark and black and a little bit heavy. That's the Samsung Gear VR box. And you can use it with your telephone, but you're in a blacked out world where everything becomes dark and you're fully in, and everything inside of it is a new world that's been created. Now, it can be created with photogrammetry, right, which is a fancy word for points in space where you're taking photos and stitching them together and making a real live experience, or you can utilize some video to do the same through drones, or it can be completely computer generated. Augmented reality is where things in your everyday world are just enhanced. Pokemon Go, which was all the rage for about 7.5 minutes in 2016, was a great example of augmented reality. You're looking at your phone, all of a sudden there's a superimposed image on your actual screen or in your world that doesn't really exist. Google Glass was an experiment basically that came out, and 2014 timeframe, people had those cool glasses, and all of a sudden you're looking at groceries and the nutrition information pops up on the food you're looking at, or the pricing, or the calorie counter, whatever. So augmented reality enhances your current existence. Virtual reality immerses you into a totally different experience, whereas there's this thing called mixed reality now, which is kind of the best breeds of both worlds, which is pretty interesting.
While you were talking there, Terry, I Googled augmented reality, and I came up with a YouTube video that is titled, "This is Terry Bean After 9 Beers." And it's about 3 minutes of you just carrying on. I don't know if you've seen that, if that's come up, you know.
You know what? What's really funny is I don't know when this show actually goes out, but I'm making that video sometime now, and when it goes released, and then you're going to look kind of silly for saying that, Jeff.
Touche, Terry Bean. We'll see who wins that one.
Throw down the challenge. I like that. Nice.
That's easy. 3 minutes. That was kind of the edited version, is what I'm thinking.
It needed to be. It needed to be.
Let's all be clear. I don't edit anything.
That's
okay.
awesome.
It should have been. Okay. So speaking of the Samsung Gear, again, not a sponsor. Let's switch gears again.
Ooh,
I want to talk a little bit about connection because, Terry, I called you a connector at the beginning of the show, and you are, and I think that is leading very, very beautifully into your new venture here with virtual reality. But one of the things that I stump about or get on a soapbox about in sales specifically is that we need to get away from trying to computerize everything. We need to get away from trying to move toward this efficient place where everything is a script and how many calls and how many contacts and how many touches, and just tell me how to do it. Tell me how to do it. I'm going to do it a million times and that'll be fine. And then ultimately what we're doing is we're losing the essence and the nuance of selling, and we're making ourselves imminently replaceable. So what I'd like to do, and I don't know if there's a way you can quantify the value of your network, but you've made a lot of relationships. You built a lot of relationships. You know a lot of people because of your intention on being connected. And I just wonder if you can, I don't know, we got a few minutes left on this podcast. I think that's a really good place to kind of lead us out, actually.
So the intention isn't even really as much to be connected as it is to be of service, right? To be helpful, to be someone that can be a resource for others. And when you look at life that way and you focus your energies toward that, what happens is opportunities to be of service continue to be attracted to you, right? So that was really what the goal was. Although one of the videos you will find of me, and I was pretty sober for this, was my TED Talk called The 6 Degrees of Connectedness. And one of those degrees is the idea of being connected to others. So, I mean, to your point, that's probably been an intention of mine too. Degree number 1 is get connected to self and understand who you are and what makes you tick. And I was just watching a video on Hinduism this morning because I've been on this understanding world religions at a deeper level kick. And the word dharma is really, really important to the Hindu religion. And it's understanding the path that you are here to walk. And most people haven't done a good job of that. And you know how I know that? It's because most people don't like Mondays. You would love Mondays if your dharma was in line, right? That's just the truth. So being connected to others and building those relationships is such a key thing in sales. But to your point, robots can do scripts pretty easily. Your computer can go out and recite the script. Heck, your computer can go talk to their computer and you guys can script battle it out. Building that relationship is all about being able to find common ground, or things that the other person might have an interest in. I just had this happen the other day. I was talking to a lady named Michaela. And when I asked her how she spelled her name, it was very not how I would spell Michaela. And I'm like, well, I bet you couldn't find pencils at Cedar Point ever. She's like, nothing like it. Never could I. And so we talked about that for 2 minutes, and she'll remember that conversation for a while, right?
Cedar Point, not a sponsor.
We had a whole list of people you should be calling after this show.
Hey, this is all about lead generation, man. I'm telling you, that's what we got to do.
There we go. I love it. So we're going to replace I'll have your people call my people with your computer can talk to my computer and
that's right.
Battle it out.
When we truly get into the relationship economy, that's kind of what's going to happen, because you're going to end up ferreting out those relationships, right? We funnel everything So your computer is going to be able to talk to their computer. Do we have a match? No. I'm going to go find someone where we have a match, where they should actually be talking. So, I mean, we're 3 to 5 years out from that happening, but that's the future of business development, of at least original lead generation. Maybe it's 10 years out, but it's going to happen because it's easier that way. Why would we spend time talking to people who have no interest or no need for our offering?
Yeah, I kind of like that, actually.
Right.
I'd rather spend my time with people who are either I can help them, they can help me. I mean, there's just a connection there, and
no question about that. That is exactly why people like it, and that's exactly why it's going to happen. The problem is when you talk about salespeople who don't realize that it's their job to make that thing happen, and that's kind of my crusade, right? I mean, it's maybe to call it a crusade is a little bit much, but I mean that's how passionate I feel about it. If you're just in there punching a clock, dialing for dollars and saying the same tired thing to the same tired people, you're not going to get anywhere. And in this era where everything is about job creation and how do we get people with unique talents and unique skills to be able to capitalize on that and feed their families based on those talents and skills, but then everybody runs in to mail it in every Monday because that's just what they feel like they need to do. And please, someone just tell me what to do. No, you know what to do. Here's the secret. You know what to do. You've been talking yourself out of doing what you already know how to do for your entire career. Stop.
Yep.
All right, I'm off my soapbox now. We can, get back to it. But that's the problem. That's the biggest problem in sales right now.
My favorite line comes from Charlie Wahlberg, who's the guy that actually curates TEDx Detroit. So no, not a sponsor.
No.
Nice. But Charlie, we're open.
That's right.
we're go with it. Charlie always says, we don't have intellectual gaps. We have behavioral gaps. We know what we need to do intellectually. We just don't have the behaviors and the habits to go out and do it.
Yes.
So I agree with what you said, Jeff.
Good. I love it. So Terry, tell me, what are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now?
Yeah.
I just finished Irrational Persistence, which is a book by David Bilko. So Jeff mentioned the story about where we met. Year 2, he's one of the guys that actually puts the event on, or his partner does. It was David that put it on.
Yep.
And he wrote a book about this company called Garden Fresh, which is a Detroit-based salsa company and tortilla chip company. And that book was fantastic. Have you read it, Jeff? Did you finish it?
I have it. It's behind me on my bookshelf. It's red, but I haven't read it.
That's R-E-D.
That's right.
R-E-D, not R-E-A-D.
The color of the jacket is red.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I know it was about the story of these people that there were a lot of things that were counterintuitive that happened. As their business tried to scale, they noticed that they lost some of the humanity, some of the nuance, some of the personality of it, speaking of all those three things. But, talk about making salsa at scale in 5-gallon buckets, because when you scaled to larger stainless steel containers, it didn't taste right. And when it didn't taste
Costco
right,
is your customer and you're making salsa in a 5-gallon bucket, and that makes sense to you, it's crazy. But the book's got all these great lessons. It's really excellent.
Oh, I'll have to pick it up.
And ultimately, when you think about it too, when they went back to their roots and went back to what they knew to be their, the spirit of their product, that's when a company like Campbell's comes along and pays a little over $250 million with a B dollars for your little home-based business out of Ferndale, Michigan. The chips are delicious. You pick them up at the grocery store in the deli section, and it still says from Ferndale, Michigan. I mean, they are operated like a small business, and Irrational Persistence. It's the name of the book. It's really good.
Or when they turned Pepsi down.
Yeah.
Because they could. It's just kind of crazy. Right. The other book I'm actually reading right now is Are You Up for the Challenge? And I'm actually rereading Are You Up for the Challenge, written by a guy named Rod Hairston, who hopefully you have connected with at this point. Jeff, a heck of a good guy. I don't know if anything's come from that, but really, really excellent book. Rod was a master trainer with Tony Robbins for 9 years, went to all the Fiji events and did the whole Fiji thing numerous times. When you hang out with a guy like Tony, you get into Tony's head, you get what was put into Tony's head, right? And then you realize that you can find that through different sources, and you can kind of create your own message through it. And Rod's done an excellent job with that. So Are You Up for the Challenge is a book that like I said, I'm rereading and really, really enjoy.
Awesome. So Terry, we're going to ask you the thing that we ask everybody, because we really like you, but we still got to get you, we got to check your boxes and make sure you're up to snuff here. But what is your why?
What is my why? My why seems to change, but in my heart of hearts, I'm an educator, and I just really want to be able to leave people better than I found them. I have a tendency to almost like drag people sometimes because I'm like, why don't you get it? And I get a little bit crazy about stuff like that. But that's my why, at least on a global level. On a personal level, she's 14. She's a cheerleader. She's a softball player. She's a golfer, and she's now a B student as opposed to the A student she was at before she found boys.
That's just called teenage years. It'll pass. Trust me.
It'll pass. That's what I keep
this too shall pass.
Yes. She's going to Orlando to do the ESPN cheer competition this weekend, though. So that's kind of sweet.
That's
fun.
Awesome.
Proud dad moment.
Yeah. Nice.
So Terry, where can we find you? Let's just say people are actually interested in connecting with you. How do they do that?
Shockingly, someone might give a crap. What next? So I'm really easy to find. My personal website is at trybean, trybean.com. And there's a link to my digital world. I'm very active with 10,000 plus connections on LinkedIn. I'm active on Facebook for sure, but I'm a little more particular about who I let into that world these days. But you can find me at Terry Bean there. Again, not that Terry Bean, the one that's in Detroit. I've got a page and a profile there. I'm on the Twitters as at Terry Bean with a bunch of folks there. So on YouTube, wherever you want, the answer should have been wherever you find yourself, because that's really where I am, right? But
love it. Trybean.com. It is a web domain as well as a call to action.
It is. Yeah. It is. It seemed like good advice, right? That just, hey, you're having a problem? Try Bean. I don't know. So it's all because when I got on Hotmail, somebody had Terry Bean at hotmail.com. So I dropped the E and the R and I looked at it and I just started laughing. And this was like 1996. I was like, this is
there you go. Nice. You're like
1 years later.
Look at that. That was pretty clever though.
Not bad.
Well done. Excellent. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. This was a blast. I feel like there's a lot more we could cover here, though. I think we might have to have you come back.
Tune into the Business Growth Time podcast with Terry Bean and Janet E. Johnson. The E stands for something different every week. That's the best part about it.
Every week.
You'll learn something.
You know what? I've known Janet. Janet and I went to high school together, and we've been doing this podcast for 2 years now. I have no idea what the E actually stands for. I've never admitted that out loud. It's okay. It's on your show. I could say that. It just dawned on me. I was going to say, yeah, Janet, crap, I don't even know what it is. I've known her for years. So, yeah, would love to have you guys on the show, or one of you, and maybe we'll do kind of a home and home thing, and maybe Janet comes on your show. She's brilliant at social and especially Facebook marketing. Really, really good.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, we definitely would love to do that.
You kids are a lot of fun. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll be connected soon.
I love it. Thanks, Terry. We appreciate it.
All right, be well.
Thanks, bud. Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at The Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week. How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out.